For the second time inside a week, WCW wrestlers have invaded the hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden. And once again, we must ask the question, what can Vince McMahon and the entire WWE roster do to combat this unstoppable invading force? Well, Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo found out firsthand. Boy, did they. I'm Charles Renton with the Retro Review of WWE Smackdown from June 28, 2001. As I said, my King of the Ring 2001 review and my Raw review that I did just before this, because that's how you have to do shit chronologically, otherwise it makes no goddamn sense, like some of the missed opportunities in this goddamn clusterfuck of an invasion angle. Wonder if you can tell how I felt about this invasion angle. I wanted to give myself a project after retro reviewing the entire last year of WCW, and figured this would be something good to dive into. Since they upload all the Raw, Smackdowns, and the pay-per-views on the cock, it's all on the big stimulating cock. It's time to stimulate that cock, rub that cock up, and release all this content to you people. What am I even on about anymore? Yeah, the invasion angle really was a missed opportunity after missed opportunity after missed motherfucking opportunity. It's really disappointing. And anyway, let me know your thoughts on the invasion angle in the comments and on this particular episode, because they really wanted us to boo Austin. Austin wanted to be booed, and the fans were booing, but they weren't booing because he was a heel. They were booing him because it's like, you idiot, we don't want to boo you. Why are you going against what we want? You're not giving us what we want. And anytime he gave them a glimmer of the old Stone Cold, and I can't wait to retro review that. My God, that pop when he came out and beat up the WCW roster right before the Invasion pay-per-view started. That was something else. Fans did not want to boo Austin, no matter how hard he tried. Damn, I mean, I give him credit for trying, but it just didn't work. Anyway, we get recaps of the invasion angle. Took about the first 3 minutes of the show. The old Smackdown theme, and they are back again in MSG. And pretty hot crowd. I miss hot crowds like that. And I look forward to WWE possibly running a pay-per-view in MSG. And we have Cole and Taz on commentary. This is when Michael Cole was more tolerable. And Taz was a wrestler / commentator. And then right after, I believe, No Way Out 2002, he would go to being a full-time commentator due to the neck issues that he'd had stemming from the injury they had after that botched spike pile driver, I believe in 95, 96. I think it was 95. And it was nobody's fault. It was an accident. But he's been a hell of a commentator since, I will say that. So here's Vince. He says, "Do you smell that? It stinks in here. It stinks of WCW. I'm not proud to be Madison Square Garden. It's tainted by WCW. Tainted love, tainted love." Speaking of tainted love, we find out how tainted Vince's love is a little bit later. Taint. Gross. Now you're all thinking about Vince's taint. I mean, if I have to think about this kind of shit, then so do all of you people. Look, wrestling's weird, and I'm very weird. Anyway, he says it might as well be the Nassau County Coliseum. Oh man, you never want to mention the Coliseum. And an asshole chants, and then, "Hey Shane, you mess with us, we're going to kick your collective ass." Kick the Nightmare Collective's ass. How did Vince know that group was going to be a thing? God, that was brutal. Linda's here to keep an eye on Vince. The question is, which one? And she says, "Well, you didn't mean what you said about MSG. You left out one clip, though. Remember what you said to me about wanting a divorce?" And he says, "Well, I've changed. I'm trying to be reasonable." And the crowd's booing him, and he's trying not to get angry at the crowd. He says, "I still love you." And Linda says, "Well, I believe deep down that you do, but how about this? We have a pay-per-view called Fully Loaded. Well, why don't we make it, WCW versus WWE, and have matches on Raw and SmackDown, but have this big clash, this monumental clash, World Series, Olympics, all that stuff and everything." And Linda she has great ideas. They're going in 2 different directions, like her eyesight. And she's coming up with this, and Vince is like, "You're on. I'm gonna, and this is actually how he said, "I'm gonna drive those WCW's stars out of business." Oh, well, it's not as bad as the botched Hogan promo where he was a certain right guy for the job, if you know, you know. And that was pretty much it. This promo with Vince and then Linda coming in took up the first 15 minutes of the show. After the recaps, it was about 11, 12 minutes. So long promos opening the show never, it hasn't fucking changed in 20 goddamn years. Anyway, the APA then tell the roster, "Hey, you got to be ready because the dregs of WCW are going to come at us." Wild to see Haku there, because after he had that brief team with Rikishi after coming back at the 2001 Rumble, they didn't use him. They didn't have him at WrestleMania 17, and they should have. I don't know why they didn't just have him in the gimmick battle royal, because even though he was more than a gimmick, would have been nice to have him win it, but they couldn't have the Iron Sheik go over the top rope, as hilarious as that would have been. Moving on, Edge and Christian versus Billy Gunn, a.k.a. Billy Bitch Cakes, as Edge said. That's not what I said. That's how Edge called him. And X-Pac. Man, great. DX is reunited. I mean, not really. It's the DX factor. Hey, you're dealing with the one DX factor. So, miscommunication between Edge and Christian. He got dumped out to the floor a little bit late, early on. Christian did. Match is all right. Buzz Killer, which was the Impaler, 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's about it. I think the matches collectively were about 30 minutes of the show, and this was cut down with, with commercials involved to like 92 minutes. Anyway, Austin then says to Deborah that he would have wrapped his hands around Booker T's neck, right in front of the woman that he would, hit. Woman that was his wife, and she was told not to say anything, and they ignored all the domestic violence shit in his biography, but that's okay. Austin's one of the greatest of all time. He's certainly not the only wrestler to hit his wife, but still, in fact, they ignore that. Anyway, and then Vince comes in and says, well, he doesn't want to do the invasion. Austin says, hey, this is why it's a good idea. Basically, we can whip their asses. And the next Raw is going to be in the Tacoma Dome. And that was an infamous one where they had Buff Bagwell versus Booker T, and nobody cared. To be fair, Tacoma, the last WCW show we saw that was any good, and I wasn't there for either of these, was Spring Stampede 99. So anyway, then Austin's like, telling him his plan, and then more talking. Spike and Molly are interrupted by Saturn and Moppy, and then sponges are beautiful because they get all soapy. Man, Saturn beat the shit out of a guy in Enhancement Talent, and they gave him a mop gimmick. I would have given him a bonus. So anyway, Crash interrupts and says, hey, I'm going to team up with Jacqueline, or as Derb said, Jaqueline. Thanks, Derb, if you happen to be watching this. I can't unhear that name, at least that way. And he says, well, Molly, she didn't like what you said about her not being good on Tough Enough. I never said that. That's not what she heard. And then JR has a sit-down with Taker and Sarah. And who said Sarah could talk? Good grief. She says, well, everybody's more famous when they're dead. This was embarrassing. Taker is just like, what the fuck is going on? And then Vince, Austin, and Deborah are talking. Kurt comes in, and Austin is jealous, so he hugs Vince because hilarity. And I should have hated every bit of this stuff between Austin and Kurt, but it was so fucking hilarious. It really was. The comedic timing, because Kurt was such a goddamn goof, and Austin was all paranoid and everything. It was hilarious. That he's surprised Vince is better off than he was better off after Monday, because he didn't think that he was going to be doing so well. And, Booker got him from behind. Booker's in the building. Oh, no. And then we have Kane versus Albert in an ODQ IC title match. Big men smashing into each other. We get a bell to the head. Ring my bell. And then Kane with a Hurricane Rana. Aha. And then he hits a choke slam after some near falls. And then DDP comes in and hits a diamond cutter that sort of happened. I don't think Kane knew either how to take it or wanted to take it. And DDP got sandbagged in his brief WWE run. Baldo Bomb 1, 2, 3. New IC champion, Albert. Thankfully, Lance Storm would win the IC title a little bit later, and the IC title credibility be restored. All due respect to Albert, but by that point, did anybody want to see him as a singles champion? And then he brought him back as Lord Tensai years later. And he got Albert chance because nobody believed it. Vince is upset at Taker because, DDP gets a free pass. DDP can do this. I mean, you didn't have to agree to what Taker said, Vince, but whatever. And then Kurt says there's that old saying where there's a DDP, there's a Booker T. Why that was funny, I have no idea. And we get the Hardys with Lita versus the Dudleys. It's a tag title elimination match. And tables. There's tables involved. So anyway, why'd they enforce tags, by the way? Why? Seriously, just make it a tornado tag. The crowd loved it. Lita, wrapped her legs around Bubba's head and, got a Lita Corona. Swanton on Devon, by Jeff, and Devon's eliminated, and then Jeff's launched over through two tables outside. So it's down to Bubba and Matt. Palumbo and O'Hare glom them. They come through the crowd. They beat him up and everything. Cool Shanton bomb. These guys really were a bright spot in the last year of WCW, even though I hated Mike Sanders being the voice of the Natural Born Thrillers. O'Hare and Palumbo were a hell of a tag team. And then 20 guys glom them and beat them up and everything and take them back to the ring. We get them thrown through tables and a toss out of MSG during the break. Thanks for coming, O'Hare and Palumbo. There's your WWE debut. That's where you're at compared to where the roster is at. And when your biggest stars in that group were the APA, all due respect to them, but they were a strong tag team. They were a strong tag team as far as like entertainment, but they were mid-level as far as work because Ron Simmons was busted up and Bradshaw was, well, Bradshaw. Thanks for coming, O'Hare and Palumbo. Hilarious. So we get Crash and Jaqueline. Thank you very much again, Derb, versus Spike and Molly. The men are on the women are on the men. All Human Centipede together. Molly go round on Jacqueline. Pretty stiff, 1, 2, 3. Jaqueline then punches out Crash. Angle, basically says, oh my God, Booker's here. And then Earl says, hey, someone's from WCW to see you. It's Tori Wilson. She says, my contract's almost up, Vince. I want to have a personal conversation with you. Austin hugs Vince, which is hilarious. Kurt introduces himself first. Tori Wilson, Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist. Why this worked, I have no idea, but it did. And then, it was hilarious. Vince says, well, how about we meet a little bit later? And Austin says, well, I'll clear my schedule. And Kurt says, I'll go with you. And it's like, I'm on the team. You're not part of the team. Well, why are you going? Well, I'm on the team. And just, again, shouldn't work. And then Tough Enough won. Man, the male winner was someone to be maven about. Oh boy, man, those eyebrows. So Tajiri's upset about missing Regal. Regal says, it's not your fault. Jericho says, hey, I want a tag match. You can't find a partner. Chris Benoit's out for 6 months. It's actually about a year, but whatever. And then I'll find somebody. Hey, how's your tea? You know, because he pissed in his teapot. Funny. Looks like you're in trouble. Big Show with Trish versus Saturn with Moppy and Terry. They are fighting over a broken mop. They are fighting over shampoo. The women fight and then choke slam to Saturn. That's about it, really, for that. And then Regal and Tajiri take on Jericho and Scotty 2 Hotty. Scotty's worm is back, and he uses said worm all over Tajiri to beat him. That's about it right there. There isn't a lot to these matches. Austin comes out to a pop, and then because he's upset about, Booker T not showing up, and Taz is here and says, hey, Austin, last week you beat up Michael Cole. And I actually forgot that happened the episode before the King of the Ring. I would have watched that. Because watching Michael Cole get the shit beat out of him, even in 2001, was great to watch. And really should, quite frankly, happen more often because Michael Cole is really bad at his job. But anyway, he says, Taz says, if you're not going to apologize, I'll beat the apology out of you. And I want to fight you for the championship. And Austin says, well, I'll fight you, just not tonight. Then he hits Taz with the belt, beats him up with the chair and everything. Safely. Even though Taz is tough, he still did have the bad neck. And then Austin says to Cole, make a run for it. It's like, it's like, oh, you're not going to do that? We'll come to the ring and take your beating like a man. And then Cole leaves. Booker hits Austin from behind with the belt and then runs off. And, man, he just runs through the goddamn crowd, which that must have been a goddamn thrill and a nightmare for security and all the lawsuits that could have happened had any fans gotten trampled. Though in MSG, I mean, really, would you have felt bad for any of them getting trampled? I wouldn't. Anyway, enough dumping on the MSG crowd. Pretty decent episode. I look forward to it getting messier when they just decide to make it basically WWE, WCW guys against WWE guys because Vince McMahon didn't trust anybody in WCW to mean anything. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Reckland. I'll see you soon.